When Hi-Fi Rush was first announced, I was immediately intrigued. The gameplay, character design, and graphics looked so good. Well, after about 10 hours, this has got to be one of the best games I've played this year. Everything was spectacular and I couldn't put the game down. This is my spoiler-free review of Hi-Fi Rush. You play as Chai, a future rock star who undergoes a surgery to make him robotic. After all his belongings are taken from him, he's ready to go into the operating room. He lays down, and just as the experiment starts, his MP3 player falls on his chest and gets fused into him. And, long story short, he can now feel the rhythm of everything around him because of it. However, he's now labeled a quote-unquote defect due to said MP3, so he fights robots to escape the laboratory. After running into a girl named Peppermint, he learns that not everything about Vandelay Technologies is as it seems. He teams up with her and a few other characters to take down the evil corporation and save the world. For me, the story was kinda all over the place. At some points it kinda felt boring while other parts felt engaging. It would start to feel a tad repetitive, then something drastic would occur to spice it up. It didn't really hinder my experience, but at some points the story felt a little slow. The concept of defeating the 6 Vandelay bosses felt kinda boring at the start too, since a lot of games have the same format. But Hi-Fi Rush really spiced it up by making each boss have a wildly different personality from each other, making them enjoyable to watch and making me even more eager to defeat them. The characters that joined Chai and Peppermint were also great, and while I'll talk more in detail about them in a bit, they really helped the story come to life. They added a certain charm to it that couldn't be taken away, and I loved it. I really don't have any complaints about the story overall, and that's great. I can normally find some aspect of a game's story to be bad, but Hi-Fi Rush genuinely didn't have that. While, granted, the concept of fighting 6 bosses doesn't sound the most fun, in actuality I had a blast with it and I kept wanting to play to see what wacky twist would happen next. You'll be shocked to hear that this was actually my least favorite aspect of this game. As someone who's been playing rhythm games for many years now, I was shocked that I was struggling to hit the enemies on time with the music. The whole idea with the gameplay of Hi-Fi Rush is to hit the enemies on beat with the music to get a small increase in damage. In theory, I thought it would have been pretty easy to do, but I found myself having a really hard time, and I think that's why I wasn't a big fan of the gameplay. When every fight started, I dreaded it, as to me it felt more of a hindrance than a reward to experience. I genuinely forgot that there were combos you could do besides spamming left click, and when I did try them, I couldn't nail the timing down, so I just resorted to pressing left click over and over again, even though the game encourages you not to do that. Enemies themselves felt gimmicky, and the same 3 to 4 types would show up, making it feel the same every battle. However, there were 2 things I actually really liked about the gameplay: the enemy's rage system and having the party members help out. Let's start with the former. Some enemies are considered mini-bosses, so they have their own unique moveset. After dealing a certain amount of damage to them, they would get enraged and would throw you into a completely different kind of gameplay, your routine rhythm segment. Little lightning bolts would show up and would give you a pattern that the enemy was going to attack you with. You would have to match the timing of your parry to successfully knock the enemy down and then finish them off. It was super fun and something I could do with relative ease. It made me feel accomplished, as I finally wasn't struggling for once in this game to hit the notes on the beat. Now let's talk about how the party members can help you out in battle. Each character has their own special gimmick, whether that be shooting down shields around the enemy, breaking a shield in half with their fist, or blowing out fires. It was something unique. The cooldowns for the characters to show up were also super fast, so by the time you called them out and they did their little attack, they'd practically be ready to go again. The game focused on the group, even if they weren't directly in battle, and I really loved it. Each character's attack had their own certain flair, which made for very engaging battles. Outside of battles, the puzzle solving and exploration was actually pretty fun. It was cool to basically explore wherever you wanted in the level, and I had a blast finding all the hidden gears, graffiti art, and upgrades around town. And again, the entire party would be useful here, as they each had their own ability to help out the player. To see a game so focused on using many different characters was super cool, and it really helped me bond with the party just a little bit more. While yes, overall the gameplay felt tedious and sometimes frustrating, I genuinely had a good time outside of combat, and I think that made it for the time spent in combat. As you could probably tell from the story and gameplay sections where I gushed about them, I loved the characters. Whether that be the people in the party or the bosses from Vandelay, every character felt unique in their own special way. The main antagonists were especially fun yet infuriating, as I wanted to be friends with some of them, while with others I wanted to beat them in battle so badly. Rekka, Zonzo, Corsica, Mimosa, Roquefort, and Kale were all super cool villains and all had their own quirkiness that separated them from the rest of the pack. But of course, I can't forget about my own party members. Chai, Peppermint, Macaron, Cinnamon, and a spoiler character I won't mention here were all super lovable, and I'm glad they were considering we were stuck with them the whole game. So if you didn't like them, then you probably didn't like the game that much since they're like 50% of it. In your base between story missions, you could talk to each party member and the conversation would range from funny to sometimes even serious, but it really showed the personality of each character. While Macaron doesn't like fighting and he's more precautious, Chai is the exact opposite, decimating enemies and not having a thought in his head. It was such a stark contrast between them all and I loved it. The writing of the characters was very well done, and every one of them, whether that be friend or foe, felt like real people. You know, going into this game, I expected the music to be top-notch since, well, this is a rhythm game, but I may have had my expectations a little too high. I honestly didn't realize this until after I beat the game, but it seems like I had accidentally had streamer mode turned on, which meant that I didn't get to hear the licensed songs. That kind of sucked realizing that, so take what I say here with a grain of salt. Besides the music and the boss battles, I really couldn't vibe to any of them. I genuinely cannot remember any of the songs from the game, and that's a shame. You know, it's hard to talk about the music in this game when you can't even remember it to begin with. Now, the boss battle music was entirely different, and those songs were great. Every song made the boss battle come to life in some way, and every song was at least a head bopper. I just wish the rest of the game had followed suit. And who knows, my opinion may change on this part entirely if I ever replay the game. But don't worry, I'll make sure to have streamer mode turned off. This game was such a great treat to experience. I rate it very highly with the 4.5 out of 5 star rating for a great story, excellent characters, and sometimes fun gameplay, with it really only being held back by some enemy fights and the music. I highly recommend you play this game, and I think the price tag of $30 is well worth it. I don't regret playing it, and I hope you don't either. Thanks for watching. If you liked my review, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel for everything gaming, and turn those post notifications on so you know when I post next. Did you enjoy Hi-Fi Rush as much as I did? Let me know in the comments below. See y'all next time.